called a 10-year bar, which means they have to go back to their country, wait 10 years, and then get in that line. So you're telling someone, well, if you want to become legal in this country, you could potentially return to this country in a legal manner in 15 years? The youth who were brought here by their parents and came here when they were, 1, 2, 5, 10, whatever, once they turn 18, the clock starts for them. And they start incurring that bar. So the question of, well, it's not like people can just say, I'm ready to become legal. I've decided it's a good idea, and go to their local, Department of Homeland Security office and fill out an application and get a green card. And say, I've been here 10 years and I've been a really good person, never committed a crime, paid my taxes, and then they get a green card. It's not like they can do that. It's that they're stuck. They're stuck. And the whole time, they've been here, developing roots in the community, working at Weaver Street, working at the Target, building your house, washing your dishes, picking your food, doing all of those things, and then they get stuck. And we've been benefiting from that, and employers have been benefiting from that. And then when things get into this place, then we say, oh, but they're illegal, they're not supposed to be here anyway. And it becomes this really convoluted conversation around immigration and who's at fault and the illegal immigrant. And sometimes I think, man, but every time I go to a restaurant and I look in the kitchen and I make an assumption about the people in that kitchen that maybe 1 or 2 of them doesn't have status, and I start enjoying my food, don't I become an illegal consumer? But I've never heard anyone call me that. No one's ever talked about me being an illegal consumer. No one's ever talked about the illegal corporation or it's always the illegal alien, the illegal. So it's just not a complete conversation. I'm not saying that everyone in this room is going to agree with me or think that the same as I do, but what I'm asking is that we elevate the dialogue and begin having a real conversation about the whole situation and not just one piece of it. Slide. So what's the conversation in North Carolina, really quickly? I talked earlier about the failure of comprehensive immigration reform, which I'm telling you, I was naive enough to think that we were actually going to get something done this year. I couldn't fathom that Congress would let this just go on. Really, something was going to happen. Something had to happen, right? We really thought, we may not like it. It may not be perfect. There might be things in that law that we agree with, other things that we don't agree with. But something's going to happen. And we were trying to get ready for our 5-year plan and, lining up attorneys to help people process applications and making sure that there weren't payday lenders taking advantage and checking, that was our work plan for the next 5 years because we really thought this was going to happen. Then they walked away from the table and they said, oh, it got really, too hot for comfort for us, got really close to the 2008 elections. We've got campaigns to run. We've got presidential candidates all tied up into this. Really, we just can't afford this politically. This is just too dicey for us. And they walked away from the table. And that was it. They just walked away. There was no next step. They just walked away. And I never thought that I would sit in my house watching C-SPAN crying. I never thought that would drive me to tears, but it did. The day that they killed immigration reform was the saddest day. And after that, going back into the General Assembly, we no longer had the protection of saying, this is a federal issue that requires a federal solution. They're working on it. Don't go into it and have to do something you're going to have to undo because they're definitely going to come back with immigration reform. Let's wait and see what they do. And when they didn't, and when people like Rahm Emanuel said, well, we're pretty sure that this is a second-term issue for a Democratic president, and we're sitting there suffering, and all of us, I'm saying we, the collective we, not we like the Latino community, we are suffering, and they're like, maybe in another 5, 6, 8 years we'll deal with it. I couldn't fathom it. And so what did the North Carolina government has been considering for a while? It's called the theory of attrition. And the first time I heard about this theory was in the John Locke Foundation had a luncheon, and they invited El Pueblo to attend. So we did. I went with my lobbyist who's Jewish, And we sat in the back of the room, and literally people would walk up to the table and read our name tags and then walk away, like sit at another table. It was okay. We sat by ourselves at the table. And this guy named Korkian, who works for the Center for Immigration Studies, which is an immigration restrictionist think tank, believes in less immigration, more enforcement. That's their view, an advocacy organization on the polar opposite of us. He stands up there and he says, and this is like virtually a direct quote. He says, "It's not like we can load them all up in the boxcars and ship them out of here. But it's like if you're overweight and you need to burn off the fat, you starve it off. And that's what we need to do in North Carolina." And I remember, like, my lobbyist, who, again, she's Jewish, the boxcar, I mean, she was, like, shaking. And I'm sitting there, like, did he really just say burn off? I just couldn't. And the whole time, there were these, it was so surreal. There were these Latina waitresses putting the water on the tables and, like, picking up people's plates. And the guy's, like, saying this. And he was, like, looking at us because he knew we were there and saying this. And he goes on and describes this theory of attrition, the essence of which is this. What needs to happen is that North Carolina needs to eliminate every social safety net that exists for the undocumented community so that it can't survive here. And if it can't survive here, then we can estimate that in the next 6 years, it will self-deport because it won't be able to make it. So that's the plan. And somehow, as North Carolinians, we're supposed to watch this happen. 6 years of increasing suffering that drives people to leave, and we're already seeing it take effect. So one of the first things that went were driver's licenses. The next thing is that local sheriffs are now signing into these 287G programs so that the immigrant community does not feel like law enforcement will protect them. They're afraid to call them because they feel like if they call with a domestic violence complaint or witnessing a crime or having been in a car accident, if they call the police, they're going to quickly say, well, let me see your papers. And let me see the papers of everybody in your house. And that may not necessarily be the way that the local law enforcement is implementing the law, but it's the deep fear, and in some cases, the reality that people are facing in North Carolina. So no police protection, no driver's licenses. They want to go after things like access to healthcare, access to education, access to anything that they, county services, make English the official language so they can't access bilingual services. Do all of these things so that you basically back them into a corner and they're like, we can't live here anymore, we cannot survive, and we're just going to have to pick up everything and leave. And we're already starting to see that happen. That's the theory of attrition. That's the solution that we are now considering in North Carolina. 2 minutes. The last is raids and deportations. These are happening all across North Carolina. They're happening now. North Carolina has seen the arrival of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. And what they've been doing is they've been targeting certain communities in North Carolina and certain lists of people and conducting raids and deportations in their homes. So in some cases, in Mecklenburg, for example, and in Chatham County, they were going door to door on people. In Bladen, Hoke, and Robeson counties, the counties that surround Smithfield Pork Processing Plant, they cooperated with Smithfield to get the names of former and current employees of Smithfield. They arrived in their trailer parks at 3 in the morning and started shaking the trailers and telling people to come out. In that raid, they stayed there from 3 a.m. until 5 p.m. that next night. They took 28 people, 13 women, 15 men. There were children involved. When we talked to the public affairs guy from ICE, Richard Rocha, he said to us, well, we gave them the opportunity when we were detaining them to let us know who they wanted to leave their children with in terms of custody. And if not, we offered to let them to have DSS take them. So what happened was that one woman in particular, her 3 children, she signed custody of her children over to the babysitter